testimony in the sedition trial for members of the far-right group the Oath Keepers resumed yesterday as prosecutors accused the militia of an armed rebellion aimed at keeping Donald Trump in power. Yesterday, an FBI agent testified the Bureau was sent a recording in November of 2020 that captured the leader of the Oath Keepers, Stewart Rhodes, telling members to get ready to fight for then-President Trump in the streets of Washington. That recording, while sent to the FBI in 2020, apparently was missed by the agency at the time. The FBI agent testified it was not until the recording was sent again by that same tipster in March of 2021, so after January 6th, that the agent saw the message. On the November call, according to court records, Rhodes told more than 100 people, quote, "We've got to be in D.C. You've got to make sure that Trump knows you are willing to die to fight for this country." Joining us now, NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney. And Ken, good morning. So what more do we know about this tip, who it was sent to exactly in November of 2020, and how the FBI seems to have missed it until more than a month, 2 months rather, after January 6th?
We know precious little, Willie. The FBI is not responding to our request for more information about this, and they're not commenting on these revelations. But it really underscores what we've already reported here and elsewhere, which is that there was a massive failure to act on available intelligence that all but predicted violence leading up to and around January 6th. And this is a great example of that. This was a phone call that was recorded by a participant where Rhodes was addressing more than 100 of his followers. And this was introduced for the first time as evidence at this trial. We haven't heard of this before, but the FBI agent acknowledged that this was passed on to the Bureau in November 2020 and apparently was not acted on. It was only when it was resubmitted in March after the January 6th riots that the FBI then acted and absorbed this as part of its investigation. So it's a really disturbing detail, and we can only hope that the January 6th committee, that while they're doing a great job of investigating, all the involvement of Trump and his inner circle and the people around him in what led up to January 6th, they're also investigating the intelligence failures and the security failures. They haven't had a hearing about that yet, but the Inspector General of the Justice Department is also taking a look at what happened here, and hopefully we'll get some more answers on that soon. But we're also learning in this trial that there's a whole lot of evidence that these Oath Keepers were meticulous in their planning almost from the moment that Trump lost the election, that they wanted to use violence to intimidate Congress and other elected officials into essentially not adhering to the lawful transfer of power. And it also shows that a Yale law degree, which is something that Stewart Rhodes has, does not prevent you from suffering from some pretty serious delusions here, because they were convinced that Trump won the election and that the country was imperiled if Joe Biden took power.
And clearly, as we heard on the tape, were ready to fight. They were stockpiling weapons at hotels across the river in the Potomac just in case it came to a civil war of sorts. Let me ask you, while I have you here, Ken, too, about the motion filed by President Trump, former President Trump, and his legal team against the 11th Circuit Court that basically said the Justice Department was okay to go back and go through these documents now in its investigation, the one seized from Mar-a-Lago. Is this going anywhere for President Trump, or is it just symbolic to try to get this to the Supreme Court?
Well, so what's so interesting about this, Willie, is that the circuit justice who gets to hear this first, who receives this request, is Clarence Thomas. So in theory, Clarence Thomas, more than in theory, in actual fact, Clarence Thomas could act on his own, legal experts tell me, and grant this stay, which would essentially what the Trump team is asking is that the special master be allowed to review the 100 classified documents to see if any of them are privileged. Now, if Thomas did that, that would be one of the most brazen acts probably in judicial history, given the role of his wife, that we've seen in involvement in the January 6th investigation. But if he did that, the full court could overrule him. There's a real question as to whether the court will even hear this request by the Trump team. A lot of legal experts say it's not well founded in law, and that the court is generally reluctant to get involved in these kinds of discovery disputes. And there's another really interesting thing in this very dense and technical brief. They say, the Trump team says, that one of the roles of the special master should be to decide whether these documents were properly classified. But you guys know, because we reported it here on the show, that when Raymond Dearie, the special master, asked the Trump team for any information about whether the president had declassified those documents. They refused to answer. They said that wasn't a proper request, and they want to reserve that for trial. So it's the Trump team really talking out of both sides of its mouth here in this legal brief. We'll see where it goes.
And now a Hail Mary, hoping to get some help from the Supreme Court. NBC's Ken Delaney. And Ken, thanks so much. Mika?